Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Witches UK. I am very sorry I've been MIA for the past week. I've been busy sorting out my equipment, getting a new setup, things like that, and it's currently one of the newest purchases. Yep, it's a lovely monitor. Not mine, it's me fella's. I don't fiddle with these things. But yeah, so we've been upgrading so I can bring better content for you guys and add things like the Scurvy Game series. That's going to be happening. The first game on the list is a game, I think it's called Phasmophobia. It was recommended to me in the comments. So that will be one of the first games I play. It probably won't be the very first, but it will be one of the first, depending on which one I get that first, that one or Blair Witch. Anyway, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for me, so we can reach the goal of 100 subs, because as you know, once I get to 100, I'm going to be doing a giveaway on my channel. I apologise for the lack of makeup, the wet hair. I have been rushed off my feet today, but I needed to find time for you guys, so that is what I'm doing now. Today's video is going to be about a place called Whitby Abbey. Now, the ruins of the Abbey still stand today. The Abbey was first built around 1657 and it became one of the most important religious centres in the anglo-saxon world. In 664, it became the setting of the Synod of Whitby, which is a landmark in the history of the Church of England. Now, the headland is now dominated by the ruins of 13th century church of the Benedictine Abbey after the Norman conquest, but we will get to that in a minute. So a little bit about the history before I go into the spooky. As you know, that is the drill, so let's get to it. Excavations have been done, and these excavations have discovered that the Whitby headland had been settled on during the late Bronze Age, which we covered in Stonehenge video. A roundhouse within a ditched enclosure was found near the cliff edge, along with other artefacts during this, dating around to this particular time period. The Whitby headland may have been occupied by a Roman signal station in the 3rd century AD, as it is the midway point of the signal stations between Goldsborough and Ravenscar, and it is also a strategic position at the mouth of the River Esk. If this is the case, then the site on which the signal station sat would probably be in the sea by now, due to how much the cliffs have steadily eroded since then. Now, following the collapse of the Roman rule, Britain fragmented into a number of small kingdoms. And by 7th century, Northumbria, which roughly covers now what is Northumberland and Yorkshire, was the most powerful of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Now, in the 7th and the 8th centuries, the headland at Whitby was occupied by a large Anglian community who had a celebrated love for both monks and nuns, and excavations that have been done there have unearthed pottery, household goods, and fine metals. It could have been materials. But all of these are evidence of Anglo-Saxon life. Now, in 1627, the Anglian king of Northumbria, Edwin, converted to Christianity and was baptised by a Roman missionary, Saint Paulinus. The monastery that was, now bear with me because this is a mouthful, I want to say Strangelock, something like that. I'll put it on the screen. Anyway, this was founded in 657 by Hild. Daughter, one second. I have also been dealing with a cold over this past week as well. So, Strenslock. It was founded in 657 by Hild, who was the daughter of Anglian nobleman, with the support of Oswiu. We're gonna go Oswiu, who was then the ruler of Northumbria. This seemed to this area seemed to be of great importance to the royalty in Northumbria, as a lot of them had been buried in the monastery. And it was during Hild's rule that Caedmon lived there, and he was the first named poet of in the English language. Now, whilst there is only a small amount of documented history of Whitby, there is evidence of the most important event, which was the Synod of Whitby in 664. Now, this was described in some detail by, I want to say, Bede. And it was here that the rivalry between the two strands of Christianity, the Celtic and the Roman, came to head. Christianity had been brought to Northumbria from not only the missionaries from Rome, but also from Scotland. The two traditions argued over many things, from how the monks would dress to how they should wear the hair, and most importantly, how the day of Easter should be calculated. But it was King Oswiu who eventually decided that the Roman side should prevail, and the Pope's authority was gradually established over the Church of the British Isles. Now, the Anglian town and monastery were abandoned at some point in the 9th century. It is unknown when or how it happened, but a probable scenario would be that the rise in the raids from the Vikings of Denmark, and then it was followed by a permanent Danish settlement. Now, by the time of the Norman conquest in 1066, the headlands seem to have been abandoned. However, there was an established town called Whitby down by the docks, and around 1078 a monk called Reinfrid founded a new monastic community, and at a very early stage in history this split into two, and each part developed into fully fledged Benedictine monasteries, one on the headland at Whitby and one at St Mary's Abbey, York. So the Benedictine monastery probably had timber buildings or reused the Anglian ruin at the headlands. Around 1100, a stone church and conventional buildings were built in the Romanesque style, as well as a large parish church nearby. Now, let's get on to the 13th century. So in the 13th century, the monastery was rebuilt into a Gothic style. This was a massive undertaking, including landscaping of the whole site, major landscaping of the whole site. And although there is no documented evidence of this, this is the first building campaign. The first building campaign was documented at 1225 to 1250. Right. In the eastern arm, the crossing and transepts, central tower and parts of the nave seem to have been built before funds appeared to run out. Now, work appears to have resumed on the nave around the 14th century, and it wasn't completed until the 15th century. Now, after the suppression, Sir Richard Cholmondeley bought the abbey's buildings and the core of its estates. The family adapted part of the abbot's lodgings into a house. This was only one of the family's residents. Originally from Cheshire, they had already become major landowners in Yorkshire. Sir Hugh Cholmondeley played a major part in the Civil War, defending Scarborough Castle for the king, before surrendering it in 1645. After which parliamentarians, we've already covered this, I think, in the Tower of London, parliamentarians captured, looted the Abbey House at Whitby. Now, after the war, Sir Hugh Cholmondeley II did a lot to restore the family's estate and added a new wing, known locally as the Banqueting House, to the Abbey House. He also had laid out a new entrance courtyard for a more formal approach setting, so he was trying to make it livable, I guess. Because bear in mind, this was abandoned when they bought it. It's a strange history of it. Anyway, the Cholmondeleys abandoned the Abbey House in the 18th century. The roof of this makes no sense. I've buggered this up. So basically, the roof that had been built in 1670 apparently had to be removed because of storm damage in the late 18th century. Now, the shell of the Abbey Church was substantially completed in the 18th century. However, it had been weakened by the weather and was subsequently the south transept collapsed in 1736. And much of the nave in 1763. The central tower then collapsed in 1830 and the south side of the presbytery in 1839. Now, in the early 19th century, Whitby became a popular seaside resort with terraces laid out along the west cliffs, and the ruins of the abbey became a tourist destination. An interest in the site was documented in paintings and engravings. Now, this is where it gets cool. The publication of Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1897 gave Whitby a major literary association. So basically, it served as inspiration, I think it was, for Bram Stoker's Dracula. So it's ensuring that the sinister count would always be connected to the town. There you go. Ownership of the abbey passed to the Stricklands, who were descendants of the Cholmondeleys. Now, around 1880, Charles Strickland added a wing to the surviving part of the Abbey House to adapt it for occasional use as a holiday home. Now, in 1914, so we're in Second World War era now. In 1914, German High Seas Fleet shelled Whitby and caused substantial damage to the Abbey. Well, the Abbey ruins on the West Front. However, this was repaired later on. Now, in 1920, the Strickland family passed the Abbey over to the Ministry of Works, and over the next decade, Sir Charles Piers directed excavations at the site, uncovering the evidence of the Anglian settlement that was there. Between 1993 and 2008, English Heritage, which is where I've got my information from, have led excavations and survey work here, first in connection with the construction of the Visitors Centre, and one to protect the archaeological evidence that is at threat from the eroding cliffs. But now it's time for the spooky. Ooh. So the first spirit of the Whitby Abbey is the first abbess, Hilda. Now, apparently, if you look closely, you can see Hilda in the highest window on the north side of the abbey on windy nights. She's only visible for a few moments while she gazes out the window, and then she disappears. The second one is probably the most disturbing, because this poor girl didn't deserve to die like this. So number 2 is known as the Walled Up Nun. Now, a nun called Constance de Beverley, she was young and she broke her vow of celibacy when she carried on a secret affair with a young knight. When her affair was found out, she was sentenced to be walled up alive, which means they are basically buried alive behind a wall. But she was to be sentenced to be walled up alive in the abbey by her sisters in Christ. Visitors have reported hearing her screams of agony, and others have seen her fleeing, like the fleeting form of a woman fleeing through the abbey. So people wonder if this is her spirit trying to flee her captors before her punishment was carried out. Which is a shame, poor girl. Now, the third and final one is an interesting one. I think it's more hearsay than it is actual fact. So, the Guardian of the Lost Treasure. So, it's no secret that there is a vast amount of treasure buried somewhere on the site. And obviously this has brought many people to the front door of the abbey. However, one of these particular treasure hunters was a minister and his daughter. And late one night they rocked up to the abbey, shovel in hand, to go find some treasure, right? Now, whilst digging, the daughter felt a tap on her shoulder, which she believed to be her father. However, as she turned around and was met with what had tapped her on the shoulder, she let out a blood-curdling scream and fainted. So, when her father discovered her, she was just coming to with a crazed look on her face. She told her father that just before she fainted, she saw the towering headless apparition that had told her to leave or die. And ever since that day, everyone ceased looking for the treasure in fear of encountering the treasure guardian. And that is it from me today. So yeah, it's another place I want to go. I do have a list of places that I want to go that I should be able to get into soon enough, hopefully June, when all our restrictions are lifted. But yeah, that is it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I am going back to regular uploads again, so there will be no more waiting a week for me to sort my shit out. Like, I can't guarantee it'll be a scary game upload this week, but there definitely will be another upload this week. So I love you all, and until next time, stay spooky, witches. Bye!